All right, very good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call this Finance Committee meeting to order at 2:32 p.m. Are there any committee or public comments? Director Rotora?
Yes, I have one short comment. I noticed that the agenda did not include a status on the state revolving fund effort. And so I would like that somewhere in here, wherever, it doesn't matter to me where. But that was my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the other committee members? All right, watching the streaming board, I do not see anyone online. Chris, any comments? Okay, very good.
You didn't make any comments in the last meeting either. Don't feel take it personal.
I'll try not to. All right, very good. Item 3, fraud risk discussion.
Nothing to report.
That's good news. All right, item 4, water sales and service policy.
Actually, I think it's best to wait until Don's back. There's no point in going through it multiple times.
Okay, were there any updates of note that you'd like to share with us?
No, this was for Director Rotora.
Okay.
For his
All right,
comments.
But I don't necessarily have a monopoly. Anybody can say anything, and the public can certainly join in whenever they want to.
Understood. Just wanted to, very good, thank you. My favorite, item 5, electric vehicle mandate, AKA bankrupt all the local businesses. Go ahead.
I guess for this item, we did put together a letter and sent to Aqua to combine with the other letters, and that was sent on. So that's all the update we have is.
So I have an update. Apparently, that committee approved the regulation with a few amendments and some exemptions. So we're going to have to dig into that. They'll start forcing small governmental organizations to convert over to expensive and environmentally dangerous battery-operated vehicles starting next year. And they hope to have everybody converted to these dangerous, expensive, and environmentally wrong vehicles by 2030.
You know, my understanding is they're trying to get the big trucks, 18-wheelers and that kind of thing,
Yep.
converted as well. And that's going to be, not for us, of course, but for the rest of the public, that's going to be a bigger issue than the smaller trucks. And it's all not unnecessary.
So the grid won't, so what am I talking about when I'm going on about environmentally dangerous? The grid won't sustain the current number of electric vehicles during the summer. The governor has requested in the past people not charge their electric vehicles during extreme power usage. A side note, if your vehicle is about empty and the battery is about to discharge fully and you don't charge it, you will have a battery that no longer charges and you will have to spend anywhere from $8,000 to $14,000 plus to replace the battery, many of which weigh 2,000 pounds, are full of chemicals that are toxic to the environment, are mined by child labor overseas and manufactured in the People's Republic of China, and then carried across the ocean using a great deal of diesel power and carbon footprint to bring them to the United States. The purpose of this regulation is probably to force a false demand signal in the market for electric cars. And I'm not going to go on, but if anybody is bored and wants to hear all my complaints about electric vehicles, I'm happy to fill them in later. All right, thank you. Financial statements, item 6.
Okay, through April, we have revenues of 12.6 million,
Okay.
which continues to fall short of the budget. Expenditures are 14.2 million, which is also below budget. So our net right now is a negative 1.6 million, which is 500,000 below budget. So we've crept up from the last month, another 80,000 behind. I think it's attributable to the billing periods being part of March, which was wetter, cooler, as well as the first part of April. So it seems to have been warming up until today, but we'll see. If it warms up, there should be more usage, and we'll deal with that.
So just to clarify, there are really two factors. The first is that the new rates are just kicking in. And the second is that there's been less usage than normal, so we're not making as much money on the water sales.
Right. right.
Okay.
We have been working, and this will be an item that comes to this committee next month, but we have been working on the budget. We anticipate looking at the trends and whatnot, making up a lot of this difference. We'll see where we lie. We're still finalizing some numbers for that.
Okay.
I do have a number of questions. Looking at the first item, the total, we're down 700,000 basically, and we're talking something like 8%. What is that? I mean, is that a reason, 8%, or that seems like a lot.
Yeah, well, if you've read Don's weekly notices, or at least monthly letters that he sends out on what our consumption is versus the previous year, and many of these months we're down 20% in usage. So that's what we're seeing is a reduction in use.
A very wet winter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess conservation is good. I mean, I don't want to keep people from conserving, but obviously we have to be concerned about our budget.
Yep.
When going down to the expenses, I have a question about the non-operating interest. Is that primarily the debt service interest, right?
Yes.
And I get debt service interest is something that we know exactly what it is, don't we, from the beginning of the year? I mean, unless we borrow more money or,
Typically, I mean, there's other expenses that go into there when we have to prepare reports and whatnot for the state every year, trustee fees. There are some other expenditures other than purely interest in there.
okay, so the debt service interest is probably going to be a wash. It's those other miscellaneous things that are,
Yeah, the one item to note on non-operating miscellaneous, there's about 400,000 in there that needs to move to the GSA fees. I didn't pull out the pumping fee from that to put it in the GSA fees, so,
What is that now, $135 an acre foot pumping fee? Or has it gone up?
105, isn't it?
yeah, 105.
Okay, thank you.
So you're telling me that well, I mean, where is that 105 being put now?
Non-operating miscellaneous.
Non-operating interest,
Miscellaneous.
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 For,
Oh, okay, well, that was gonna be my next question, is why was the non-operating miscellaneous so out of whack? And a lot of that, I'm assuming is then that GSA.
Right, half of it needs to move down to the line below.
roughly $400,000.
Okay, well, that does make a difference.
It does, yeah.
Okay. My next question is right below there, the GSA fees. Now, I'm assuming since the pumping fees were put into the other miscellaneous one, that this is just the replenishment fee?
That's all of it less April's pumping fee. Right? Nope, it is just replenishment fee, yep.
Okay, well, if I look at the difference between the projected, or the budget, which is my money, what I call projected, and the actuals at almost $2 million, that's equivalent to 530 acre feet. And that is a significant amount of water, considering that we're right at, around 6,000, a little less than six, well, that's, I guess, total for the year.
Right.
And so we're probably we're under 6,000 acre feet in terms of total pumping now. So,
I'm sure it reflects the wet winter.
well, yeah, which again is good, but if indeed the projected, I just find it difficult to believe that we're going to, and that 530 acre feet could go up because there's still 2 months left. We have been over the last 10 years or so going down at about 160 acre feet a year. And so for this year to go down anything like 530, I guess is
So let's think about some of the recent orders from the governor's office, including halting irrigation to non-essential landscaping. That's going to
Oh,
account for a
that
big
would-
chunk of
Yeah,
that,
that would,
right?
yeah.
We've had a wetter,
You're right.
normal than winter, and a lot of people are continuing to
Yeah.
convert over to xeriscape.
Yeah, well, I guess my real, and if indeed all these, if the numbers are a true reflection of where we are, then, you know, that may be good. What I'm a little bit concerned about is if indeed we are closer to our normal 160 acre feet a year rather than the 530, then that expense of 2.7 million is going to be going up like 600 or 800,000, which will make that 1.6 million another 400 or 600,000 worse.
Remember, the GA fees are based on a calendar year. So we've already paid for the previous calendar year. Now we're on a different schedule for this current year. And that's something we'll be talking about a little bit too, especially when it comes to the budget, is how much we have to pay versus the Navy allocation and whatnot. So right now, we're on a fixed schedule, so we know what the rest of the year is gonna be on payments for the replenishment fee. It's just that true up at the end of the year that happens in January.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's something I want to make sure we track really well, because if we have to pay another $400,000 or $600,000 to the GA, again, that makes our total deficit that much higher. And by the way, I would also like to point out, in going back and look at some of the previous data, that number that's 2.6 million now under actuals, the GSA fees, in March of this year, that was 2.7 million. That is 2 months ago, it was 2.7, and then it went down to around 2.6, and now it's still at 2.6, so that means it hasn't changed.
So it should, as I was saying before, 400,000 from the line above needs to move down. It should be 3,078,000 through April.
Yeah, and that'll help, yeah. Although that previous 2.7 was also, I assume, have the same.
No, it was correct.
Oh,
It was correct in
Well, I
March.
mean, it's correct. It was using, I'm assuming that the GSA fee was in that miscellaneous column,
No, that was just a mistake in this.
just in this one.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, I didn't understand that. Thank you. Okay. And I guess I would appreciate it when we have our full meeting on Monday, that you indicate to the board whether that 1.6 million is something that we need to be concerned about right now. I mean, obviously, we don't want to make it a crisis, but we also, because the trend has been going in the wrong direction
Right.
for several months.
Yeah, and as I said last month, we're focusing where we can, which is on the expenditure side, and delaying anything that doesn't need to be done this fiscal year, and preparing next year's budget
Yeah, yeah,
conservatively to make sure we
yeah.
monitor that.
Yeah, well, I think we owe it to all of our constituents to make sure that we, in this committee, go over that budget next month in detail. One of the things that I was wondering about here were, you know, how do we calculate both the budget and the actuals for the GSA? Because part of that 530 acre feet difference could be that our original estimate or budget was overestimated. If you see what I'm saying.
Correct,
You
yeah,
understand?
yeah.
And because if it were $1 million less, then the problem, and it all has to do with the assumptions going into generating that budget number.
And how the previous rate structure worked out is it was a net zero, because we were charging everybody, all usage, every HCF an amount.
Real easy to, everything had a balance.
Right, now it's a little more difficult because it's only tier two, but, so it won't quite be a net zero next year, so that's something we have to work with to try
Yeah.
to find that balance.
Yeah. Okay,
So I have a
but
quick,
anyway, if you would, when we have I mean, I don't want to make it sound worse than it is, but $1.6 million, especially now that it's continuing to go in the wrong direction. We need to be very careful.
the reports in the past have said we're, we're operating at a deficit and we're waiting for the rates to fully kick in and so forth. We have a double whammy.
But there's only
rates
two.
and excessive, well, not excessive, lots of rain and less water
Right.
usage. So it's gonna take a month or, it's good to note and to track, but it's certainly gonna take some time to shake out, I think.
Oh, yeah, oh, no, I agree.
So I got a quick question about the end of year, what did you call it? True up with the water, with the groundwater authority.
Yeah.
Is it still true that the staff of the groundwater authority can change the allotment of the water district without going to the board of directors of the groundwater authority?
That I don't know.
Is it true that there is no formal agreement between the boards of directors or have any vote to establish that at the groundwater authority?
Really better questions for Jim than me.
All right, so I just thought, I'm asking as I thought you might know.
Yeah,
I've asked in the past, and the impression I've gotten has been that it is being staffed, and the staff is not going to the board of directors. And it's my opinion that they need to go to the board of directors there for a vote, rather than give all of the power and all the authority to the staff members, because they can do anything they like. If we have a really good year, lots of water saved, they can cut our allotment to zero. And then the board at the groundwater authority has no responsibility for that and don't have to answer their constituents. So, all right, sorry to ask you a question you didn't know the answer to. I was hoping to get some insight.
As a matter of fact, I went back yesterday and I actually read the replenishment fee.
Yes.
And quite frankly, I see nothing there that gives them carte blanche
Okay.
ability to change it. Now, there's a little note in there that says this may have to change. That is, the table may have to change in the future for various reasons, but it doesn't say it can do it without the board voting on it or without a Prop 218.
So it's not properly defined.
Yeah.
All right, great.
It's very vague.
Of course. All right, thank you. Sorry, did that come out the wrong way? I apologize. All right, item 7, accounts payable disbursements.
Okay.
And if you would go by page, please.
Sure. I'll pick out the big or unusual ones. On the first page, of course, you have the IWV Groundwater Authority payment of $306,000. We do have a payment to SCE in $33,000 for one of the accounts. The following page, page 2, we have $63,000 to Aqua JPIA, which is the insurance payment. We have $43,000 to McMurtry Hartsockworth and St. Lawrence, and $47,000 to Murphy and Everett's. A little further down, $32,000 to RSH Construction Services for the tanks, and $26,000 to Santa Fe Water Systems, which is supplies, pipe, fittings.
Okay,
Following page, nothing out of the ordinary there.
what's Univar Solutions? I'm sorry.
They're our chemical supplier.
Okay, thank you.
Which we have seen an increase in chlorine costs.
Not surprising.
Page after that, nothing there. The last page, we do have payments for $98,000 to CLC Construction. I believe that's for the raising the valve.
Lowering, most of those are all lowering the valve.
valve cans for the city's paving projects.
Okay,
We got 28,000 to on-stock construction, that's for road patching. And 168,000 to RSH construction services for the tanks,
okay,
boosters.
all right. Comments or questions?
No, I have no comments, and it doesn't appear there's anybody out in radio
Still
land.
not.
So with that, unless you have comments, I will recommend that we recommend passage of the, what do we call these? The accounts payable.
Okay, I agree with you. We'll recommend passage. Very, very good. Item 8, future agenda items.
We will have the budget on there.
Okay, right, very good.
And SRF, I guess I can talk a little bit about SRF. I was gonna do that during the finance one. We did hear a response back from Assemblymember Fong. And we are working with his chief of staff, I believe. At least his chief of staff is gonna coordinate with Aqua to try to see what kind of resolution they can come to and work towards lessening that time process for the SRF.
Right,
We haven't heard back from Groves yet, though.
okay. Do you have any future agenda items?
Oh, yes. I had recommended the last time that we discuss with the board the additional detail to the revenue budget, that is the numbers we go through. My feeling is there's not enough resolution detail to keep us on track, especially now when we're going through this transition. And it's real important that we understand where these numbers are coming from. And also, I mentioned the last time that we had a cash capital spending budget to that same list of things. Because we're spending more money out cash capital now than we have in the past. And I think it's important that we keep track of that.
Stan, when you say further resolution on the income, I saw your email, it was the fixed cost versus the commodities. Is that still what you're
Well,
referring
I
to?
mean, that is something I suggested the last time, and I think that makes sense, but I don't want to unilaterally say that ought to be it. I think it would be good to have a discussion of this group saying, okay, if we're gonna add a couple line items, what are the ones that are gonna give us the most information? And right off the top of my head, I would agree that it would be the commodity and the fixed. But I don't want to shove that down everybody's throat if there's a better, I mean, we don't want to add a dozen line items. We just want to add minimal number that give us additional insight into where the money's coming from. And my feeling is we already have some additional insight in that what we normally consider the tier 2 is strictly the GSA fee. Well, I'm sorry, the GSA fee is an adder on the tier 2. So maybe that's not the right way to look at it. I was thinking that tier 2 was just GSA, but it isn't, it's GSA plus. So I take that back. But I mean, I'm sure there's a way of figuring out what will give us some additional insight without a whole lot of work. And that's really what I'd like to look at. Also, we had talked about one previous time, one of the handouts that Don had given us earlier, it looked like we had lost like almost 1,000 3/4-inch meters. There was a spreadsheet that was January through December, and it monotonically decreased from around 11,000 down to 10,000
Talking about
3/4
customers?
3/4-inch meters.
The number of meters. So I'm going to have to say that was an error in the actual billing software and their reporting system that Don was using. I gave him a report that we built, and it's more accurate. Hopefully, he'll be able to provide you with more accurate numbers.
It'd be nice to have a second handout that was supposed to, that is a corrected version, pardon me, of that particular handout.
Understood.
And hopefully, I mean, we kind of thought it was just a software error somewhere. And so those are my future.
Okay, so, one last comment about transportation. There is a technology available that would replace combustion engines. It's fuel cell technology where they use hydrogen to power an electric motor. And you can refuel your hydrogen vehicle in a matter of minutes, just as you can with a petroleum-powered vehicle. It does not take 2 hours. It does not cause problems for the grid. And the ranges for the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles are comparable to those of internal combustion engines. It is by far the most reasonable replacement for internal combustion engines if you must have a replacement for them. So,
Well, I think the federal government is actually giving not a rebate, but a tax credit for that. For cell, up to 30% for a fuel cell vehicle.
interesting. All right, very good. So without any further ado, I will adjourn this committee meeting at 2:59 PM. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.